Welcome to ILTV's Israel Weekly. Our main topics today. Israel's south sees some of the worst violence in years as Hamas pummels border communities with nearly 200 rockets. And thousands of Arab-Israeli protesters come to Tel Aviv to voice opposition against the nation-state law. Joining me in the studio are Meretz Party Knesset member Mossi Raz, political advisor and peace activist Nir Avishai Cohen, founder and executive director of the Israel Institute for Strategic Studies, Dr. Martin Sherman, and journalist with Israel Hayom, Amnon Lord. Thank you all very much for coming in today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now, at least 3 times in recent weeks, Israel and Hamas have reportedly attempted to negotiate an end to hostilities along the Gaza border. But seemingly just hours following this latest return to calm, weekend protests in Gaza were back in full swing with Molotov cocktails, grenades, burning tires, incendiary balloons, and more. Hamas media sources claim 3 Palestinians were killed during the rioting, but this latest failure to reach a calm follows the worst attacks on Israel in over 4 years. Over 180 rockets were sent flying into Israeli border communities, and now Israeli officials are again mulling a much stronger military action.
There was the longer range rocket towards Beersheba, which definitely is an indication to escalate the situation, and we will see how we respond to that. And the important part from our perspective, from the IDF perspective, is that we are ready, prepared for different scenarios, constantly assessing the situation, analyzing intelligence, understanding what the other side is trying to do, and of course having a clear aim at our mission, which is to defend the civilians in Israel.
Now, Amnon, I'd actually like to start with you this time. What are your initial reactions to the skirmishes that have occurred over the past weekend?
Actually, I expected a real escalation that will end with some kind of a campaign to finish the Hamas violence once and for all. I must say that during the weekend, the feeling is quite confusing because you don't really feel that there is a resolute spirit at the top, at the government, by the defense minister and the prime minister to really go for this kind of campaign, and they're still very much in line and wanting to reach a kind of arrangement, however short term it would be.
Would such an arrangement with Hamas even be possible, Neil?
Of course, this is the only solution that we have. There is no military solution in Gaza Strip. We have to reach the agreement with Hamas, which will include end of blockade, which will include a right to have a seaport for the Palestinians.
They've got a seaport.
And obviously the end of attacks from Gaza Strip on Israel. This is the only solution. There is no military solution in Gaza.
I just wonder for how long the left is going to insist that the earth is flat. There is no more ridiculous solution, proposal than offering Gaza a port. Gaza has a port. It's called Ashdod. It's closer to Gaza than most places in Israel. In times of peace, it can supply all Gaza's needs. In times of war, you want them to have a port? Really? There will be no solution.
The Palestinians will be very happy that Ashdod will be part of their country.
That's part of their country. It's giving them services. Why would you possibly want to give the enemy a port? I mean, whose side are you on? How long are you going to keep telling us that the earth is flat? Really, as long as Israel is bound by the idea or by the delusion that somehow the Palestinians are going to morph into a prospective peace partner rather than what they really are, an implacable enemy, and derive your policy from the correct analysis, you're going to have continuing violence. And in the end, as I've said many times before in the studio, in the end, there will either be Arabs in Gaza or Jews in the Negev, but there won't be both.
Member Raz?
Okay, the government is trying to solve the problem of Gaza with violence for years, and they fail again and again. We failed in the war 4 years ago.
I must say that this is a lie. We pulled out of Gaza.
We did not.
As you said,
no, of course we did not.
Gaza is a mini North Korea. Gaza is about to become North Korea.
It is not. You can say it again, but it is not the truth. You said by yourself that they can go to a port that is in Israel, so they don't have a port. There is a blockade. When they started the blockade, they say in few weeks. I made the deputy to the prime minister. I made the deputy to the prime minister when they started. 11 years ago, they said.
So infuriating.
I know.
So infuriating.
Sometimes you feel that you are not safe enough in what you say, so you have to stop somebody else. It happens even to me, but we did not pull out from Gaza. And the most important thing,
As I said, the earth is flat.
as you said, you believe, Ashdod is the port of Gaza, as you said, and Netanyahu is the prime minister of Gaza, and you are the representative in the parliament, and you say bullshit and you believe in that.
Do you believe that Ashdod can't service
we did not.
So what was the pullout in 2005, if not a withdrawal from Gaza?
As I've said, first, we go once a week to Gaza. Inside Gaza, we invade in order to make, to cut trees and things like that. Second, 300 meters from the border, they are not allowed to come. Third, fishermen cannot go out to the sea more than what
because
we
they
tell
became
them.
enemy, first-class enemy.
So you did not pull out. We did not pull out because they became enemy. But we did not pull out. So you said. So when you started with saying that I'm lying, and now I understand you do. You understood that it's not what happened. But what I wanted to say, is that you asked about possible agreement with the Hamas. It happened again and again. It happened in 2014, and it lasted 4 years. It happened in 2008. It lasted 5 months. It happened in 2012.
Well, I mean, every ceasefire we've had in the last several months has ended within 24 hours with incendiary
unfortunately, it's ended with killing protesters. As we saw last Friday, protesters were killed.
Let me remind the viewers that there used to be, way back then, a military analyst in Haaretz named Ze'ev Shiv, the late Ze'ev Shiv. Already in 2007, a couple of years, only a year maybe, after the pullout, he wrote...
That did not happen.
He wrote an article, maybe a few months before he died, where he called it defeat in Sderot, because the IDF... people did not realize what's going to happen after we pull out, and the Qassams and the rockets that came out of Gaza didn't find any answer, any response from the IDF.
When did they start?
What is your offer?
When did they start?
When did they start?
Actually, 1969, Katyusha to Israel, missiles to Israel, but from Gaza to 2001, way before the pull out, whatever.
What do you offer? What do you offer? To enter to Gaza, to control Gaza? What do you offer?
I'd like to pull. Hold on.
All terrorist activities in Gaza should be eradicated before you get
how?
If we're talking about self-defense for Israel, this is the case.
Okay, but you failed.
Enough yelling, please. I'd like to calm down our voices, please. I don't want this to devolve any further. One at a time, please. So going back to the conversation, I'll pose another question to continue it. Yuval Steinitz, the energy minister, he said that, as you said, Amnon, that we were closer than ever to launching a ground invasion into the Gaza Strip, but rather that they were waiting for the barrier around the Strip to be completed before that. Do you see that as likely?
Well, that's a ridiculous claim, because the barrier has been largely been neutralized by the balloons and the kites and the growing drone activity. It's only a matter of time until they launch a swarm of drones and probably with non-conventional loads and explode them over some Israeli community. But you listen to these people, you just wonder what planet they live on. if in 2005, in 2005, if anyone had suggested that the realities that we would have are the realities we have now, he would have been dismissed as a right-wing radical fearmonger, because the Hamas have improved their offensive capabilities beyond anything that people imagined back then.
So what do you offer? What exactly do you offer?
What do you offer? Treat them as an enemy. Put your army in there, take the territory, hold the territory, and remove the population.
Will be the price.
Remove the population.
Remove the population.
You want to deploy,
and it doesn't matter the price.
You want to deport 2 million.
No, I don't want to deport. I want to give them relocation
remove,
loans.
not to remove.
I want to give them generous relocation loans.
Generous relocation.
With enough money, they
in
will
the sea? Where is this relocation to? Maybe I'll go with them.
You know what? With enough money, there will be desired immigrants in a whole range of countries.
I'm not talking about this kind of solution.
So my suggestion is that you pay, the right wing pay, and from your side.
We should pay for the Oslo Agreement. The Oslo Agreements already cost $3 billion. Why does the left wing pay for that? Why does the left wing pay for that?
The army costs us $20 billion every year.
Why doesn't the left wing?
Let me just say, the IDF and Israel managed to, in a way, to close most of the avenues for Hamas offensives. But
so everything is nice now.
They didn't foresee the possibility that kites, with the ability of incendiary balloons, can create such effective psychological warfare. Now, the problem is, I don't know if it's a problem, but the slogan is, we're not going to go to war about incendiary balloons. But you see that the population is in a great problem. I mean, you have to solve this problem, and Israel is not going to sacrifice any national interest in order to appease this kind of enemy.
So we are going to sacrifice soldiers because we don't want to sacrifice national interest.
Or maybe you've forgotten. Soldiers are there to defend the national interest and defend civilians. Maybe you've forgotten that.
Gentlemen, I'd like to hear your response, please.
You were a company commander in the paratroopers. For what reason? For self-defense.
To defend the state. To defend the state, but not to defend economic interests. To steal their lands like
we had Gaza in our hands.
You are saying because we steal their lands.
And they made it into a terrorist base. That's a fact.
Okay. I can't believe I have to say this, but please, we cannot continue if the yelling goes like this. I'd like to remind all of you that, you know, speaking over each other, it won't work. We have to be able to hear each other and continue the conversation. Yelling at each other indiscriminately is not a conversation. Now, moving on to our next topic, unfortunately. Speaking of protests, yet another demonstration against the nation-state law was held in Tel Aviv recently. This time, the protest was led primarily by Israeli Arabs who came into Rabin Square by the thousands, and critics again have been vocal, primarily in their opinions that the new law turns minorities into second-class citizens.
أنا موجودة بالأساس علشان نتظاهر ضد سن قانون أساس اللي هو قانون أساس القومية، قانون أساس دولة إسرائيل، دولة الشعب اليهودي. عشان نقول إنه هذا القانون هو قانون عنصري، هو قانون أبارتهايد. قانون اللي بيقول إنه في نوعين من المواطنين في هاي الدولة، مواطنين درجة أولى اللي عندهم حقوق واللي هن محميين تحت الدستور، ومواطنين درجة ثانية اللي ممكن تعطيهم حقوق كأفراد لكن هن كقومية كتعريف قومي هن ما لهم ولا أي حق.
Okay, so I'd like to start over here on this side of the table this time. You know, how do you react to this most recent protest, and you know, what would you say to their calls?
So first, I have to say that yesterday, me and MK Moshe Raz, we participated in the demonstration, and I'm proud of it, and I'm happy. And why? This demonstration was against this catastrophic and racist law, and the demonstration was quiet, calm, with a very reasonable call. The main point of this demonstration was against the law. Indeed, very, very, very few, maybe 10, 20 people called some calls that I disagree. So what? It doesn't mean that this is what the majority thinks. And
what were some of those calls?
There's some violent calls, but again, it's the minority of the minority, very, very few. This is first. Second, there was an issue with the flags of the Palestinian flag that was raised there. I have to say that I have no problem with it, since I'm expecting the Arabs to express their solidarity with their brothers in the occupied territories, and I understand that it's part of their identity. And the fact that someone raised the Palestinian flag in Rabin Square doesn't mean he's against the country.
Oh, really?
Exactly like a Jew raised the Israeli flag in Manhattan.
Oh,
it doesn't mean he's against USA. It's the same. It's exactly the same.
Oscar, not to interrupt, but as I
You have to
said,
stop
but you said at a certain point there has to be a limit to it, what people preach, the earth is flat. That's exactly what they're doing. I challenge you to find one clause in 11 clauses of the nationality bill that's racist. There's no reference to race, no reference
number
to
7.
What number 7?
Number 1.
What?
Number 7.
What?
Number 1.
What?
Eretz Israel, something that I don't know what it is, something that was never in the Israeli law.
So what you say
So
is that Megillat Ha'atzmaut
So what you saying? What you saying?
No, it's different.
Why?
Let's hear the response.
Because in the independence, how we call it, Megillat Ha'atzmaut, there it's Eretz Israel, in part of. Here it's all the land that is not.
So the Jews.
We don't have sovereignty in it. Is for the Jews, without mentioning the second nation living here. Number 7, the government. The government see as a value. Of course it is. Of course it is.
Explain to me the reference to race. Explain what happened yesterday was borderline treason, and you were part of it.
First time
borderline treason, and you were part of it.
First time in the history of this state, tens of thousands of people, half of them Jewish and half of them Arabs, marched in Tel Aviv. And the right wing, that all the support of the right wing is because they incite against the left wing and against the Palestinian citizens of Israel. Again, you stop me. The right wing cannot see that. And then they say, a flag, there was a flag. Netanyahu, the prime minister, he know how to make a demonstration. When he went to a demonstration, he listened how people call death to Rabin. He saw the prime minister with SS uniform. He is not going to talk. He is going to talk about. He is going to talk a flight. He is going to talk about a flag.
The seat that you can talk.
People
live.
I'd like to turn to you actually because
they stopped me.
Let me correct you in one thing.
Another idea.
In that law, it says definitely that the right of self-determination within the state of Israel. It's written in the law.
Number 1.
And this is something, let me correct you.
Number 1 is Eretz Israel.
No, but the right of self-determination of the Jews is limited to the state of Israel. There's a great distinction.
Limited to the state of
yes.
So the Jews don't have
written.
So the Jews don't have a self-determination outside the state of Israel.
We have a law here.
So we have to ignore the law for the West.
You don't understand me, Mossi.
We have the law here.
It's a deceit.
The land of Israel is the historical birthplace of the Jewish nation.
Okay.
You disagree? And in it,
I agree, but not in a law that makes it only for the Jews.
Be quiet for a minute. And in it, the state of Israel was founded. So Amnon's right, you're wrong. You incite negative your own country. You should be ashamed of yourself.
You incite against citizens, and that's why you incite again and again, and that's why it happens again and again. That right-wing people take weapon and kill prime minister and kill demonstrators because you want to see people killing each other.
It's a fact.
You want the prime minister.
There has to be a limit. There has to be a limit to it.
To limit what you say. I incite you.
It's a fact that in the law it states in very clear terms that the right of the Jews for self-determination is only in the state of Israel. There's a great difference between the state of Israel and the land of Israel. And the hint, if you want to deduct from this, is that it is possible that another people will have the right of self-determination in the land of Israel.
And it says
don't
that
you
there is a
understand it? I mean,
priority,
it's a fact.
and it says that there is
It's
a priority here to the Jews on the Arabs.
Sorry, where does it say that?
It says
doesn't even mention Arabs.
say
It doesn't. I read the law. Here's the law. You show me one clause, and there's another basic clause, and there's
indivisible.
only Jewish settlers.
Gentlemen, this is not a conversation.
And there's another basic law called the Basic Law of Dignity and Human Liberty,
hold on, I'd like to...
which guarantees civil rights of all citizens. So you have one law which deals with national identity and one law that deals with civil equality.
I'd like to hear a little bit. Okay, Neil, I want to ask you a simple question at this point. Do you believe that maybe most of the criticism against this law is coming from a group of people who would like Israel to become Am Kol Yisrachea, or the country of all of its people, rather than the Jewish state?
No.
Would you agree with that? No.
No. What I'm saying...
Do you agree that Israel is the Jewish state and should remain that way?
This law is anti-democratic. This law is anti-equal. It's against, the basic in democracy that every citizen have the same rights.
No.
The fact...
Dr. Sherman.
This is my opinion.
They have civil rights.
Flat.
They have civil rights. Not collective
but
national rights.
They should have the same rights. Every citizen, it doesn't matter if he's an Arab or a Jew, should have the same rights.
So should we abolish the law of return?
Sorry?
Should we abolish the law of return? Should we, yes or no? Should we abolish the law of return?
This is not the issue right now.
This is not the issue.
This is not the issue. This is not the issue.
I think if I were to sum
Are you
up...
for or against it?
No, this is not the issue. You are taking it to a bad or to other directions. What I'm saying is that this law is not democracy because it's against the basic fact that everyone here are equal.
No,
that's the thing.
That's another law.
The fact that the government will encourage the government will encourage only Jewish settlement, and
that's what
it is not equal. I'm sorry.
The Declaration of Independence. That's exactly what I said. Are you for the law of return or not?
No, we have to
are you for the law of return or not?
Read it again. I'm sorry.
Please stop. Okay. Unfortunately, we have to end. So that is, unfortunately, as I said, our time for this week's ILTV Israel Weekly. Again, I'd like to thank our guests, Amnon Lor, Dr. Martin Sherman, Councilmember Mossi Raz, and Nir Avishai Cohen. And thanks, of course, to all of you for tuning in. Remember to follow us on Facebook at Israel English News and on Twitter at ILTV News. I'm Aaron Porras, and we'll see you next week.